It's time for another edition of Why Are You Awake? Paul Farahvar here, your host. This week's guest, comedian John Hickok. Make sure you check him out online. Also, if you're listening to this podcast, go over and watch it on my YouTube channel at youtube.com/Paul F Comedy. Go to my website, paulfcomedy.com, for upcoming dates. Also, follow me on Instagram, and there's the information right there, probably. Also, check out our sponsors. Hey, gang. As some of you know, I used to be a practicing lawyer in Chicago. I no longer practice, but from time to time, I need a lawyer. And when I need a lawyer, I call my friend Scott Shapiro. Scott Shapiro has been practicing law for over 25 years in Chicago. He does it all, from workers' compensation to personal injury, employment issues, and even entertainment law and contract needs. If you need a lawyer, call my friend Scott. 312-648-8800. That's 312-648-8800. Or you can email him at scott@scottshapirolegal.com. Tell him I sent you. Welcome to Why Are You Awake? Paul Farahvar here, your host. This week we have comedian John Hickok. John, welcome to the podcast.
What's up? Thanks for having me. This is great.
I always like to start. I don't know a lot about you, but I remember we did a show together, and forgive me if I already told this story, but we were doing a show together at a club. I'm not going to say where, but it was a showcase show. Everyone was eating a dick, and I had to close it. You went right before me, and you crushed. You set the tone, and I was like, this guy's funny. And I remember after that Dusty Slay had told me that you'd moved to Chicago and to look out for you. Mm. I think we did a show before that, but you didn't impress me at that point.
Oh, okay.
But that time
I've
I was like,
better since then, I guess.
Yeah. But then we've done shows since then. I've always talked to you. I thought you're an awesome comedian. You did great. I've seen you at Zany's. We did shows together at Zany's too.
Yeah.
And you moved here from Nashville?
I did. Yeah. And yeah, it's been great. I love it. Like, I came up here for comedy, but the city has kind of taken a hold of me a little bit. I like it. You're like
a country person, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to say country bumpkin because that's racist.
Yeah. I think you can say. I think you can.
I could say that.
Off. Yeah.
I could pull it off. There you go.
I think you can. Yeah, I grew up. It's weird, and this is like something I'm trying to work on in my act and stuff too. But it's like I grew up in the country on a shooting range, like shooting guns in a log cabin, but yet my parents were like higher educated. Like, my dad's like an English literature teacher.
Really?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Like a nice like private school, and then my mom's a nurse practitioner, like a big hospital. So it's like I had like, higher education like parents. My dad wanted to live out in the country because of guns.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So it's like I grew up around like in a redneck area, but it's like that's not really like who my parents are,
right?
Per se.
Were they from like rural areas themselves, or did they move there from like? Were they
yeah?
Did they get off the curb? Are they like wanted by the police?
No. They're both from Kentucky.
Okay.
And I think my mom more just kind of grew up in a typical suburban, kind of environment in Kentucky, and then my dad did spend some time growing up on an actual farm, like raising tobacco, like that whole thing.
Oh, wow. Okay. And then you grew up in a rural town in Kentucky or in Tennessee?
No, I was born and raised in Nashville.
Yeah. Okay. But you said the place where you lived, was it in Nashville proper, or was it like in?
No, it was like about maybe 30 miles, something like that.
How big was your like high school?
Pretty small. I'm trying to think. I don't know how big the graduating class was. But pretty small. Not like one of those tiny ones you hear about where there's like 10 seniors or whatever. There was it had at least be a couple hundred of us or something.
Okay.
I don't know, but it wasn't too big.
You had enough to have a football team and shit
that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Were you on all the sports because like
No, I played basketball, obviously, but yeah.
How tall are you?
6'8".
Oh, and when did you become 6'8"?
I stopped growing like super early on, if you can believe it. I think I was 6'8" my sophomore year in high school.
Oh shit! Okay.
Yeah.
So you grew up in a town with it sounds like a smaller rural town. Was it like a high educated town, or was everyone just kind of like country?
Sort of like a bedroom community, as they call it, where it was if you wanted to live somewhere, and if you wanted to work in Nashville, but you want to live somewhere a little more in the country, a little cheaper, it was like a place that people would go. But then you also had people who like kind of were of that area too. You know what I'm saying? So the school I went to out there, for a while I went to my dad's school, which was in Nashville. and it was
where
like
he taught. You mean?
right where he
Okay.
taught, and it was like a nicer like private school. A lot of like famous country singers' kids went there and things
Wow.
things like that or whatever. And then I was sort of like flunked out of that school. I was not good in school, yeah.
Okay.
And then so they moved me to the local school, and it was like a mix of like rednecks and like kids that were more, of like the Nashville. And it was funny because when I went to that school, they thought I was like some like yuppie type of kid or whatever.
Because you're showing up in like J. Crew clothes and shit.
No, I didn't ever dress like that, but just like they had that idea of me because they heard I came from a school in Nashville, and I had to be like, no, I live like right over there, like 2 miles down the road, and I grew up shooting guns,
So guns was a big part of your life. You've got a podcast about it, and it's like your whole thing.
Yeah, the YouTube channel, yeah.
YouTube channel,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so my dad was a competition shooter. He started with in the 70s like what they call long range silhouettes. So it's like these like steel silhouette cutouts of animals, basically. Right? It's like this standard, like this is a certain type of like style of competition shooting, and they're like super far away, and people shoot them with handguns, like 44 mag and 357 stuff like that.
And the competition is who can get the head better or whatever.
I forget exactly how it works, but yeah,
Okay.
something like that. And then he went from that into IPSC, which is basically like more of a combat sort of thing where it's like you're shooting from behind barriers and like, going into like a little fake room and shooting paper target.
Right.
Like it's a little more like that,
You told me once you had a gun when you were 4 years old or
I
something.
did, yeah.
So like
3, I think, when I
you're a
first got
sharp shooter. You could shoot.
Yeah, I mean, so my dad, because of being into that, he set up a pistol range like at his place. Now it wasn't set up like
At his place, you mean where you live?
right where I grew up. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
It was your place too.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was his place now, but it was more of like a static range where it's just like you just have like like a shooting gallery almost kind of set up. If you can picture that, and targets up on the hill and stuff like that. And so I grew up shooting at that. So yeah. I mean, I'm good. Yeah, I'm good with a pistol and a rifle. There's guys a lot better than me, of course. But
Was it something that your dad wanted you to be good at, or was it something that you like genuinely, or a combination, I guess?
no, I think it was more just for fun. It was
Okay.
something to do. Basketball was the thing he wanted me to be good at
Yeah.
because he was a really good college player
Oh, okay.
and still holds a rebounding record, I think, at the school he played at.
Where'd he play at?
Austin P. He's still got some letters from NBA teams like inviting him to training camp
Right.
and stuff. Now, the NBA in the 70s,
A lot different.
not it's not like I can be rich. It was obviously it was prestigious, but it wasn't like what we think of it now. He didn't really get to do what he wanted to do in that, or maybe had some regrets with that.
Yeah.
So I think he really wanted me to
Push you to it. And
Yeah.
you're 6'8".
right, exactly, the same height. We're both the same height.
Yeah.
He's 6'8" too, and I wasn't driven to be an athlete. Like I had a lot of skills, but I didn't ever have the like drive to be a great basketball player.
Right.
I frustrated a lot of coaches because I could do some like things that a lot of people couldn't do, but I just didn't. I don't know. I
didn't
didn't care enough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But you liked shooting.
Yeah.
Okay. Like when you come home from school, was it like, all right, we're going to go dribble for like 80 minutes?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you an only child?
I am. Yeah.
I fucking knew it. I fucking knew it.
The only one.
A lot of comedians, we've said this before, you're either only child or youngest child, or if you're youngest and there's a big gap between, you have a lot of, my brother's like 7 years older than me, so I have like only child syndrome a lot too.
Okay.
So, but you've got it big time. So,
Okay.
so you played a lot by yourself, and guns
Yeah.
would be a great thing to
Yeah,
fucking
yeah.
do. Was everyone like in your town, like they would all shoot? Like it was just part of life, right?
Like so, this idea that people in the country are all gun nuts. See, like everyone in the rural areas, most people hunted and they had some guns or whatever, and maybe sometimes it would shoot. But my dad was into shooting on a level, especially at that time, was not that common. He had an AR-15 back when like very few people had them. Nowadays, well, because of the videos that we've made and like the internet, there's this whole thing. Like I know tons of people who are gun nuts on a level that like my dad was growing up, but back then that was super rare.
He was ahead of the curve.
Yeah, I'll tell you one of my favorite stories. I've tried to do this as a bit and never figured out how to make it like stage funny, but I think it's an interesting story. Is when my dad first, this is before I was born, when he first got that property, he's like Mr. like big shot sales guy flying all over the world, making really good money. And he was like, out riding his bicycle. He'd just gotten that property, like where I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
He was out riding his bicycle, and he comes back, and there's this farmer from like across the street. I mean, this old guy, overalls, like, I mean, a farmer, like probably. He's got this .22 pistol, and he's trying to shoot these possums. Like, there's a possum that just had like a litter of whatever, I don't know what you call them, pups. I don't know what they're called.
Sure.
But he was like trying to shoot him, but he was like so blind he couldn't hardly see. And so, the farmer guy was thinking like, who's this city slicker guy? Like, who's this guy? And my dad pulls out a Glock and just like shoots him.
Gets rid of them all.
He was like, the hell's this guy with this plastic gun?
Yeah. In high school then, like, what would you guys do were you getting into trouble in high school, or were you kind of like a good kid?
Not really. Like, I didn't even start, I mean, I did like some underage drinking and stuff, but nothing too crazy. Yeah, I don't think I even got drunk until my senior year.
Really?
Yeah,
that's
in
late.
High school, something like that.
What would you guys do at night? Like, what was the thing to do?
I spent so much time with basketball. Like, it wasn't until I got my driver's license, which I got late, that I could actually like go out and hang out with friends. So really, like, I didn't have much of a social life because we had all these guns and all this stuff. My dad was like real weird about like me having friends over the house, you know, things like that, because he didn't want people knowing like. They didn't have anything illegal at all, but it's just like, we got this valuable stuff here and we don't want people to know about it, you know.
And also safety concerns, I bet, too. You don't want to have that on your conscience.
Which is ironic because now we put it out to the internet for millions of people.
What is the site? I know you have that joke, which is hilarious, by the way, where the shooter, the Trump guy, was wearing the shirt of the number one YouTube channel. Right, you guys were number two. Yeah. What is it's just what's the channel?
Yeah, it's just called Hickok 45 YouTube. Yeah, just a YouTube channel. We started it in 2008.
Just you and your dad?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So growing up on that shooting range, and I went off to college. I tried to play college ball for a little bit, and the college part didn't really work out. And
did you get recruited?
Sort of. I mean, I walked on at like a Division II school.
Where'd you go?
Carson Newman.
Okay.
It's called, out in East Tennessee. It's like 30 minutes east.
Never heard of it. Sounds made up. Okay.
Yeah. It's near UT Knoxville.
Okay.
And I did not realize how unique of a situation I grew up in with literally a gun range right outside my bedroom window.
Yeah.
And some of the guys on the basketball team like kind of found out about that I like, knew about guns and stuff, and they were like interested in that, and it sort of rekindled my love for guns and all that kind of thing. I realized like, oh yeah, I guess I did grow up kind of unique or whatever. So I'd be on YouTube like looking up stuff about guns, and I would find some like videos of people just like shooting guns in their backyard, you know. I mean, we're talking like 2007, 2008, very early. So anything that was on there was super crude. Right at that time, my dad in his class was teaching a book called Shane, which was, you familiar with it?
Where he shoots the dog at the end? No, that's Old Yeller.
Yeah, it's Old Yeller, yeah.
I know Shane, too.
It's also it's a movie, too.
Yeah.
It's a famous old Western movie. He's teaching that book, so he made a video for his students showing, like, because he collects antique guns and showing, like, the Old West guns and stuff, to show his class. And he mailed it to me on like a CD-ROM. So far back this goes, and I remember watching it. It was just like this light bulb went off. It was just like, you know what I mean?
We should do this.
It's like, hold on, and I would talk to him on the phone. I was like, hey, I've been watching this videos on YouTube. Like, stuff sucks. Like, you got to make some videos and put them on YouTube. And then he did, and then we like talked about it or whatever. And then I dropped out of college, and then had nothing to do, so we would just for fun like make those videos. And then then they made us a partner on their ad program. Like, this was like super new. There was no like thought you could make money at that time, and the little money started trickling in, and one thing led to another, and it got big enough to where like I quit my job. I was doing like security, and he quit his job teaching way earlier than he would have had to.
Really?
And yeah, I mean, so we've been full time with it since like 2012 or something like that.
So people probably send you shit to talk about their guns and stuff or whatever promotion too, right? Like
yeah. I mean, we have like sponsors that are like companies that sell guns. Like we don't work with direct with the manufacturers because we review guns. That's like our thing. So that would it would have a bias, right? If we're like being paid by the company that made the thing. So
the whole thing is reviewing guns. Basically,
right. Mm-hmm. And we do like modern stuff, like people are like looking for a new carry gun or a new hunting rifle, but then also just educational stuff because me and Dad are both super into old guns.
Do people like hit you up when they're talking about like gun control or gun issues to like be like, what's your thoughts? Like
sometimes, yeah.
I got a Ford card. I was like, I'm going to learn how to shoot. I shot a rifle. I shot a skeet. and I shot a handgun.
Okay.
I did everything that they had at the range. And I was like, all right, this isn't for me. But like when shit happens with guns and stuff, there's like two sides of stuff. And like, I don't want to get too political, but it's like there has to be like they got to talk to you guys to be like, what is the answer? Because like when healthcare, when people talk about healthcare, doctors would be pissed off at Obama and shit or whoever and be like, why aren't you talking to us? Like, we're the fucking doctors.
Right.
You guys are the gun experts. Like, how do you...
Right. I'll tell you, I can like simplify it, at least my perspective on it.
Yeah, I'd
like,
love to hear it.
So,
because I don't know the answer. I don't think you can ban guns. That doesn't make sense.
There's two sides to that conversation. There's the self-defense side, and then there's the tyrannical government Second Amendment side.
Sure,
right?
Yeah.
So on the self-defense side, now I do not believe that statistics can realistically show that having more access to guns makes society less safe.
Okay.
But let's say that it does, it still will not change my mind, because if a person breaks into my house, a statistic does not, I don't care if they're 20% less likely to be doing this thing that they're doing. Yeah. That does not help me in that situation.
Right.
No matter how rare of an occurrence it is, it's happening.
Sure.
And I want to be able to protect myself from that thing.
100%.
Right. So that's kind of whenever people throw stats at me, I'm just like, is that stat going to save my life?
Yeah.
When I need to protect
myself.
myself.
Or people that you love.
Right. Exactly. And then with the tyrannical government thing, it's like people make the argument, you could never resist the government. They have, jets and planes and nukes and all this stuff. It's like, well, Afghanistan did. Yeah. Iraq did. Right.
Yeah.
It will never come to that because they know that it will be a problem, because it doesn't even have to be like some massive organized revolution. All it takes is like 100, 150 people to make a lot of noise. And if the government has to swoop in and like, look at Waco. Yeah. Right. Look how bad the government looked after Waco.
Yeah.
And David Koresh was a bad person.
Yeah.
Like the government wiped out a person. A lot of innocent people were, of course, killed as a result. But that man is not defensible, but it still made the government look really bad.
Disorganized.
So imagine if some like regular people were like, we've had enough. Just the presence of it is enough to keep things from going too far.
Sure. When people like talk about like school shootings and stuff, they're like, we should arm teachers. I think that's insane. Like, I can't imagine. Teachers are the last people I would trust with a gun, because they're fucking dealing with kids who are, if I was a teacher, I pissed off a lot of teachers. And even when I'm doing comedy and I'm pissing off an audience member, when I know that it's concealed carry, I'm like, all right, I'm going to probably ease up on the heckler.
I actually have a joke about this, and it is just my opinion.
Yeah.
So I can't really say my opinion without not doing the joke, but it is a joke I have. Basically, like, I'll just tell you my opinion, not to tell you the joke, but it's basically like, if teachers are the ones who teach us things, right? And I learned how to shoot a gun at a very young age, and it was not that hard to do. And it's like, and then in the joke, I'll be like, and I still don't know algebra. So I think a teacher could learn how to use a gun. That's kind of like the point I make in the joke. And then the other thing is, with the other angle of it, is a teacher getting mad and like having a gun or whatever. It's like, yeah, but they're kids. You don't really need a gun to hurt a kid.
Yeah, but I mean, when I was in school, they were allowed to hit us.
Yeah.
I mean, my fucking teacher hit me in gym class, and it was pretty aggressive.
Here's the thing with the school shooting thing is a very tough thing for everyone, because the gun side will say armed security. And that
didn't work in like Texas or whatever.
Right. That's the thing. If it can still not work because schools are big, are you going to have you'd have to have like 20 of them to make it where like that could never, to make it to where a school shooting could never happen at a school. You'd have to have like one at like every corner and every entrance. And then still like one could get surprised and as the other one to get there fast. You know what I mean? So even that would be tough. Arming teachers, you could have, I think, like people have this idea that like every teacher having a gun, it's like you need people who are like already qualified to have a gun. Like to me, the most realistic way that like the arming teachers thing could work would be if a school is required to have, let's say, like however big their staff is, let's say
2 people that are
one out of every 10 teachers, they're required to hire someone that is qualified to have a gun. Like you could do that. You could find that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Retired police officers, maybe even, or just maybe there's some special school for teachers to get certified to carry a gun as a teacher.
Just not all of them.
Right.
Like it's already hard enough to find teachers that are qualified, and then add another level. Like they don't make enough money to do that shit.
Right. No. But there's a certain element of like, unfortunately, bad things are going.
Yeah. Like when we were growing up, at least when I was growing up, we didn't have like school shooting training. And all my niece and nephews, like I was just at a mall with them and he's like, oh, this is what we learned about in training. I'm like, wait, they teach you about what to do when there's a school, when a shooter in a mall? Like, I don't know what to fucking do. I just run and duck. Like,
right.
That's it. But like, that seems like there has to be something. And I don't know the answer. Yeah. I don't think banning guns, but like maybe like, if you are under 18, you're gonna have you have to be trained to have a gun or some shit like that. I don't know.
There's no answer to it.
Yeah,
that's the thing. It's like a riddle.
Or automatic guns, maybe. Maybe those are the ones that need to be more.
Well, here's the weird thing. It's like machine guns, which I have a few of those, and they're very difficult to obtain these days. So like they've gotten harder to get, but school shootings are happening more often with
machine guns.
No, I mean there's never been a school shooting with a machine gun.
The AR is the one that is the big one, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But that's not automatic.
Yeah, right? And those have been available to the public since the 50s.
Well, they were banned for a while, right? And then they came back.
See, that's a misconception that some people have. So there was a thing called the crime bill that happened in '94, and then it sunset in 2004.
Right.
So all the crime bill did, as far as like what the impact it had on the AR-15, is basically you could not. There was, I think it was like 5 or 6 things that they decided were a characteristic of an assault rifle, right? And you were only allowed to have like 3 of them or something like that, right? So during that time, you could not buy new magazines that held over 10 rounds, and you could not have a flash hider.
What's that?
It's literally exactly what it sounds like. It's just if you don't have a flash hider on like something like an AR-15 because it's such a small, fast bullet, it creates this huge fireball. You fire one shot and you're blind. You can't see anything. So it kind of contains it a little bit, right? But you just couldn't have it threaded on. You could still pin it on, so it didn't really change anything.
People could still get it.
Yeah, and folding stocks was one of the things.
The stock thing.
So basically during that time, like all new ARs just had fixed stocks and no flash hider, but you had to like pin. You could still screw one on there. You could still pin it on there.
But you have to know how to do that, right?
Yeah.
So like an idiot kid couldn't do it.
Yeah, but there's no advantage. If you're talking about a school shooting, it's not going to make a flash hider. It's not going to make any difference.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough. It's just so crazy. Like it's become such a normal thing, and I don't know the answer either. But I know like they've got to do something. They got to figure something out. I figure they should talk to you guys and be like, what can we do to stop this?
I think definitely with guns, the cat is already out of the bag.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's one thing I think sometimes people don't realize is if you're talking about banning AR-15s, that affects a lot more people than I think people realize. You know?
Who?
I'm just saying the numbers of people who own them.
Right.
You know, because I think sometimes if you don't know that world at all, you might think that like, oh, only like real extreme gun guys have those, but they're so common.
A lot of people have them?
I mean, yeah.
What do they use for? Like, what do you use an AR for other than for sport?
Yeah, hunting, target shooting, and then also that's the part of the Second Amendment that we talk about. If the government comes tyrannical and all that, you know.
Yeah,
that's the whole idea behind that.
When you were in high school, were you guys shooting like on the regular, like going out? That was part of like what you guys did
mostly
for fun?
Just with my dad.
Okay.
Mostly, yeah.
So, but your friends did you have friends in high school?
I did. Yeah, no, I did.
Is this like basketball players? Or?
Yeah. No, I did. They didn't have guns. You know? Like a few times, I think, because my dad was always weird about like having other people shoot the range, all kind of stuff. Like after high school, yeah, we would do that. So when I had like my own guns and stuff, and we could like go somewhere in the woods and shoot, yeah, I did more of that. But
so like a lot of comedians I have on this show, you can tell right away that they were in like theater and shit like that. I take it that wasn't you at all.
No, I'm not a theater kid.
Were you you weren't getting in a lot of trouble? You didn't start drinking until late. Were you like killing it with the ladies?
No, definitely not.
No,
I was awkward as hell around women because I was the only child.
Sure.
So I didn't have social skills. So like I could make friends, but like talking to women was like this other just like I was doing good to just be like not seem weird around normal people.
When did you break out of that?
Not in a serious way until like after high school. Like,
in college, you were more.
I kind of had my first like serious girlfriend like kind of toward the end of high school, like after.
Like, were you a night owl back then or no?
No.
When did you
I
become a
wasn't.
night owl?
Not until I started comedy. Yeah.
So comedy made you a night owl.
Yeah, it did. I'd probably been to a bar like 3 times before I did comedy.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I don't know. I was just like a very like homebody type of dude. Like I had friends and we would go, like the most partying I did before comedy, as far as like drinking and stuff, is I had friends that had land. Like one of my really good friends still to this day, like had a family that owned a bunch of land. It's like the most country redneck shit ever. Like he had a bunch of family members that owned land like at the end of this road.
Yeah.
So we would go down there with some of our friends and some of his cousins and stuff. And, you know, we would like make a big fire and we would drink and set off fireworks and, you know, just be kids, you know, stuff like that. I remember we'd always like say we were going to go cow tipping, but then we would go up there where the cows were and we'd be like, these things are fucking huge and scary.
When did you start comedy? How old were you when you started?
I think I was 27. So I was sort of late, but fall of 2015.
How many years of college were you?
Technically for 2 years, but really only did like a year and a half.
And your dad was cool with you dropping out?
No, of course not. Of course
How did
not.
how did that go down?
Yeah, I had my girlfriend out there, which I hadn't really had a serious girlfriend before. So
Same
it was like
girl
kinda,
from high school?
Yeah, well, like after high school, and I was sort of like distracted by that, I think, and then realizing like I don't know how much I really care about playing basketball, you know, because I don't know. I realized I just didn't want it that bad, and then I remember the death nail on my college on me getting a degree in college was when I quit playing, when I just quit basketball my second year. I was like, I know what I'm going to do. I was like, I don't know why no one saw this before. I might be the smartest man in the world. I'm going to book all of my classes on Tuesday and Thursday. And then I don't have any classes on Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. Yeah. And I have this like long weekend. Why doesn't everyone do this? Those Thursday and the Tuesday and Thursdays sucked.
Yeah.
Because it was so many classes
long.
and it was so long. You miss one of those days and you're
fucked.
just like so far behind. Very quickly, I was just like not going to class.
What was your major?
I never got that far.
So how did it go down with you and your dad or your parents? Were
Yeah, I was basically just like a loser living at home for a little while.
But what did they
not realizing I was like building something that would be huge. I was still at my apartment at the college when we had that conversation about, hey, you should do the videos, and Dad made a few and we would talk about it even before I dropped out. But
how far away were you guys between school and
about three and a half hours.
Oh, okay, that's
something
far.
like that.
Okay,
yeah, and then when I officially like moved back home, you know, then we just kind of started making the videos, and it was like I was trying to pick the pieces of my life to figure out what I wanted to do.
Yeah, but how far after you from the time you dropped out to where your dad was like, okay, you did the right thing? Like, did that ever happen?
I don't think that ever happened.
He's still like,
my dad's very old school in that
college,
that sense. He's a teacher. You know?
Yeah.
You know.
And then you said you started comedy at 27, but you got married at some point,
right?
Are you allowed to talk about that
well,
legally?
I mean, it's one of those things. It was
it
like
wasn't the same.
We
girl.
were no,
okay,
no. This we're sort of like I got married in we started dating like 2011, and I got married I think in 2015. I think like right around the time I started comedy. And I'm not going to go into too much detail on this, but we were like ships passing in the night. She was like sorority girl, partied all the time, parents super religious, and then I was like doesn't go out, doesn't even drink that much, you know, homebody, right? And then when we first got together, she was almost like annoyed with me because like I didn't really want to go out. She was always wanting to go out. She had all these friends she wanted to go out with and stuff. I didn't really want to do that. My friends were more chill. We'd just like hang out, you know, maybe drink a couple beers or something. And then as I started doing comedy, then I became more of like, oh, I'm going out, I'm doing a set, I'm doing this, or doing this, you know. And she was wanting to like be home more,
right? And
she was kind of resorting back to like her upbringing or whatever, and it just kind of like didn't work out at a certain point. You know?
How did you guys meet? How did you guys connect in the first place?
Through online dating.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's how I've met most of them. I told you I'm bad at talking to women. You know, I can at least play the game of like, you know, let me try this one, let me try that one.
Yeah, it's easier online for awkward people, I think.
It is. Like I've never been able to like pick up a girl at a bar. Like I've never been that guy. Like there's been so many times. Like I remember one time I was at a bar. It was here in Chicago, and I wasn't with the girl I'm with now. And some girl came up to me and was like, "Yeah, me and my friend have a bet. We're trying to figure out how tall you are." And I'm just like, 6'8", and I'm just like, what the fuck, what's wrong with her? And then I realized later, like, oh, that was like a thing.
It's the start of
I was like,
conversation.
God damn it. Like, I'm a retard when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah, it's there are times where I was like that too, but I'm definitely a little smoother now.
I got me a lady I'm very happy with now, though. So
yeah, I saw you with her. She's
same
good.
one. So
Yeah, you're doing. Are you like a serial dater then? It seems like you are.
What do you mean, like
you only date one time for a long time?
Well, that's usually the goal. I like to be in like a relationship.
Yeah,
you know?
Why?
I'm not a pickup chicks guy. It's just so hard to get in the door for me because it's that initial thing is so awkward. I feel like I'm just not smooth with like talking to ladies. You know.
But what about just like being single? You don't like that either?
No, because it's like it's just I don't know. To me, it's like kind of I don't enjoy it because it's like. You don't have time to get comfortable with someone, and it's just I don't know. It's kind of awkward. I feel like I don't know. It's just not for me.
It's not your thing.
Yeah, it's just not for me.
With the woman, 2011, you get married around 2015. When does that end? The relationship.
2017. So
2 years you were married. You were together for 4 years, then married for 2, so 6 years.
It was like 2. I want to say it was like 2.5. So I think we got married at the end of maybe 2014. I forget. I'm a little hazy on it, but
that's fine.
But yeah, we were married for about 2.5 years. Yeah.
You got divorced. This is back in Tennessee?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you were already doing comedy.
Right.
And you're trying to do comedy while you're going through a divorce?
Yeah. So
Did you move out? Or did you move? Were you guys?
Yeah, I got out of that house. It's funny because at first I was like kind of energized by like I got this new lease on life now, you know, going to a bunch of mics and stuff. And there was a point where I kind of realized like once the bad part of the divorce like kind of was kicking in, that's where I realized like, oh, I've got to take a step back and just kind of like get my life sorted out. So I like took like maybe 5 or 6 months off or something like that.
At this point, were you living by yourself or are you back with your family?
No, I was by myself. No, I was like the YouTube stuff was good enough where I could get my own place, no problem.
Okay.
Like honestly, I was paying double rent just so I didn't have to live at that house.
Okay. Other than making the videos, you're doing comedy.
Right.
And so you become a night owl or what happens?
Yeah. I mean, I dated a few women briefly, had one like longer relationship not too long after that.
When you lived by yourself after your divorce, did you go through a phase of just being a fuckboy at least where you're just trying to get laid and shit?
A little bit,
okay.
But not like for me.
It's like
yes,
2 people.
But like yeah. I was like 3 or 4, but
that's fine. Get it out of your system.
But it's rare that I like bang some lady that I am not like wanting or like at least trying to figure out if this can be something physical.
Yeah, it's not a physical.
Yeah.
Thing.
I may realize like quickly that it's like, but
when I was younger, I was a hornball. Like all I wanted was a girlfriend because I couldn't. When I was in high school, I was awkward. When I was a musician, when I was a lawyer, when I was a comedian, like all I wanted to do was like afterwards, I'm like, I'm going to try to get laid. Mm-hmm. You don't strike me as that guy at all.
Yeah, I don't.
I'm not like that now. I'm retired. My jersey's up on the wall. But
that's nice.
All the laws of Greece. Yeah. No, I mean, like I'm old now. I don't have a fucking libido like that.
It's not because I'm some like pure soul. Like I think if I had the skills, I guess I probably would have done it. You know what I mean? Being around women in a situation where it's like one I want to like me is like so stressful. It's so stressful. It's
so funny that you say that because like if I was your height, I would probably have AIDS by now. Like I would be such a dirtball. Like if I feel like you have so many skill sets that like if you knew how to use them, but it takes time.
I guess it's the only child thing. I don't know.
Well, it's also like you learn how to fucking shoot. This is something you could have learned.
Yeah.
But now it's too late.
It's true. Yeah.
When you're doing comedy, you're living by yourself. Were you like going out doing open mics, doing shows, and then staying up?
Like my day, like when I was living in Nashville doing comedy, like for that stretch of several years, was normally just kind of we kind of like worked during the week, kind of like pretend like it's a real job,
Your dad and you?
Yeah, and my typical day would be get out there about noon, and we'd film for, between like 4-6 hours.
Every day?
Not every day. I would say probably like an average of. It would depend, like depending on what the weather was.
Sure.
We get rained out a lot, 1 day, 2 days, 3. I'd say an average of like 3 days.
You have to film it outside?
Yeah, it's all outside, yeah. On those days, it's like working at like a 12-hour shift where it's like from like noon to like 6, I'm doing videos, and then from like 6 to midnight, I'm doing comedy.
What were you doing after your shows then?
It depends. Sometimes I just go home. I went through a phase where I just go home. During the pandemic, I feel like it was where I started like hanging out more. Like during the pandemic, I ran a technically an illegal show in my house at that time, and there was this work order, or not work order, but there's like this. The order was you could only have 10 people. At least in Tennessee, you can only have 10 people in a gathering, right? So I had this idea when the pandemic started, and I put on like the comedy group, and I was the only one that ended up actually doing it. I was like, hey, I got an idea how we can all do comedy. We're allowed to have a gathering of 10 people, so everyone get their people together, and then like we'll have our own individual little like shows, but we can't like intermingle, you know. And then a few people were like interested, but then no one did it. So I just did it, and I had a group of there was like maybe 6 or 7 of us that were pretty like consistent, and then I think the most we ever had was like we did have 11 one time.
11 comics?
Yeah,
and
we would do it twice a week.
So
in my basement.
What about the audience?
That was it. Just us.
Oh, for each other.
This is during a pandemic. Everything's closed.
So you're doing
There's no comedy.
Right.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Why don't you just do it outside? You had an outside area. You could have done outside shows.
Yeah, I guess
you didn't think that great.
Yeah.
Fucking, that's why you dropped out.
That's right, yeah.
I could have solved your fucking comedy.
Hey, no one needed to hear the things we were saying down there in that basement.
Yeah, it was pretty brutal that time.
Yeah.
When are you writing? When's your writing process?
In the morning.
You wake up early.
Yeah, I don't know why, but I've never like after doing sets. I know like comics talk about like they write when they get home or whatever. Once I'm like coming home from doing comedy, I'm like, all right, I'm done thinking. I'm not trying to like think about my bits. Like I'm done with it.
You're in Chicago now 2 years. After shows, what are you doing now? For me, I don't like to eat before my show. I'm usually getting food. I don't drink anymore, but I'm up till 4 in. I'm like wired.
Okay.
Like you don't get that way? It seems like
it depends. It depends on the night and who's around, who's available.
Okay.
You know, like I got my people that I hang out with here that like sometimes they'll come over to my place or I'll go out. Now having a lady, it's like sometimes it's like I'm just going home to her, you know, but then.
Have you ever had situations where you're like, I should have gone home like 2 hours ago? It seemed like you don't get in trouble.
No, sorry, not really. I mean, I get pretty drunk sometimes, but it's like I'm lucky in that way. I've not had a problem with being like the guy who's like, oh, fuck, this guy's about to be a problem. Like,
what about people that recognize you from your show? Like, do you have that shit come up sometimes where people are like, oh, so you think you're a fucking big shot with your guns and shit? Does that shit happen to you?
I've never had anyone come up to me in public that was like negative anyway.
Okay.
It's always been
positive.
Yeah, it's always been positive.
What about
I'll tell you what happens a lot. It's kind of frustrating. I'll do shows. I'll get booked somewhere to do a show, and then even if I promote the show, someone will come up to me after and be like, are you Hickok's son? And I'm like, yeah. I was like, I didn't know you did stand up. You know,
yeah.
It's like, all right.
Do you promote it on your YouTube channel? Like that you do comedy?
Not really. I'm still waiting to do that. That's the whole, if I can be super real about it, like the whole spot that I'm in right now is I've been wanting to do it for a long time. I'm going to put like a little short special on like the YouTube channel
of your stand-up,
right? On my stand-up, because I obviously want to get my name out there and like try to get people to come see me. If I really promote myself hard, I can get a few people to come out to a show, but it's not enough to like sustain any sort of like career, right?
Right.
So I'm kind of waiting for that because I'm hoping that could like up that because again, so many people know who I am but don't know that I do stand-up.
Yeah, you're in a different position where you're probably better off waiting until you're really good. Now
that's my thing. Is like I don't feel like
because then you could pop. That can help you.
It could help me hugely because if it is really good, a lot of people can see it.
Absolutely.
And I don't feel like I've gotten up in clubs audiences enough. I feel like I'm still too like open micy because it's like I've done so many open mics. I mean, so many. There was periods of time. Doesn't help you exactly, and that's where I'm at now. When I first came to Chicago, I was doing like 15, 18 mics a week. And then when I was in Nashville, I was doing, as many as I could there, like 8, 9, 10 a week sometimes. And I mean, I was a real like open mic grinder, and then I got to a point where like, I've got like a pretty reliable, like 20, 30 or whatever that I feel pretty good about. And it's just like, I get so fed up with how jokes, like I'll bust my ass at mics and to put together this thing I'm working on. And I get it where it's like, oh, I got something here.
Yeah.
Take it to a show. Nothing.
it's a different audience, first of all. So
it's comics mostly.
Yeah.
It's not
so
a real audience.
Comics will, you're playing in the back of the room at an open mic where the things that you think are funny that will work in an audience, a real crowd, probably won't work in an open mic.
Right.
And the only way you can test that is at a show.
Exactly. And that I'm at the point where like that's getting pretty frustrating. And I think I've like gotten past that threshold of where like I don't have to go and do 1 million mics every week to still like when I'm on a show do well on the show. Like I've done comedy long enough. So I've really kind of backed off like how many mics I do because I feel like it's almost bad for my brain at this point.
It's mentally bad for not only for your mentally for your brain, but it's also like you're not going to get better if you're just doing the same shit. Yeah. I agree with you, but there is something to be said about getting reps in.
For sure. I would never like cut them out totally, but I'm just like
you got to go up 6 to 10 times a week is what I always say.
Yeah.
And that's something that was taught to me. And
so it's like this weird balancing act where, you know, if I go back to just burning it down at the mics, like doing 1 million of them, like I'm trying to get my comedy out of that open micery type of thing. Because I went through this stretch where I had a lot of bookings and I really like kind of dialed in my act and fixed a lot of the problems and kind of like got it really in a spot that I'm comfortable with, at least for now. And then I feel like, and the mics make me do things that are detrimental to that sometimes, you know.
Because your natural instinct is to try to find the laugh.
Yeah.
You'll figure it out.
Exactly. So I'm just in this kind of like waiting period, I feel like, where I'm just trying to figure out how to get myself up at more club time to where I can get to a point where like, all right, now I'm ready to put something out. And then once I do that, then I'm going to start like really trying to like, you know, push myself out there as like a kind of like an indie like headliner, and then try to go from there, see what I can do.
You can create your own fucking brand,
and
not only create your own brand, but you can create your own fucking crowd and everything. You'll be fine.
But I'll figure it out. I mean, that having that 8 million subscriber YouTube channel is my big ace in the hole. I got a little ace up my sleeve.
Hell yeah, that's better than fucking anything on Netflix can offer. We are out of time, John. It was awesome.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great.
Dude,
this was awesome.
I love hearing. I want to talk more about other shit, but I'm gonna have you on shows. So just to talk to you, because I want to talk to you about more shit. But
cool, yeah. I'll have you on my podcast too once I get that thing rolling again.
Oh hell yeah! Where can people find out more about you and your stand up and your whatever else you want to promote?
Probably Instagram, I guess, would be the best. Obviously Hickok 45 on YouTube, but Instagram is it's John Hickok 45.
Well, thanks for doing the podcast.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Thank you all for listening or watching. Go to sleep.